My name is Aaron DeShaw. If you don't know me, I'm a practicing lawyer in Oregon and Washington, but I also am the founder of Trial Guides. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you over actually to Alex Miller next. He can introduce himself, and then I'm going to give us a little bit of an introduction here.
Mute.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Alex Miller. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing for the publishing side of Trial Guides, as well as the growing digital marketing agency. I've been here for about 4 years now, initially focusing on email marketing, but I've had the great opportunity under Aaron DeShaw to end up learning the entire gambit that is SEO, search engine marketing. And it's been incredibly fun, and it's leading us to bring on Anthony Bonacci, who's our Director of Client Solutions, and I'll let Anthony introduce himself.
Hey everyone, yeah, Anthony Bonacci here, Director of Client Solutions. In short, my role here, I'm relatively new to the Trial Guides digital marketing. In short, my role here is to craft the best solutions for your law firm, the best digital marketing solutions for your law firm. That comes from experience, both extensive experience on the agency side, both working as someone who executed the work as well as in the leadership, as well as working in a high growth startup as head of digital, and then some independent growth consulting. So I really bring, the agency experience along with the client experience. In this case, law firms like yourselves, working on that side as well, to kind of bring that experience and craft the best possible solutions for you all. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Aaron for a brief extended intro.
Okay. So it's hard to think this far back for some of you, but when I started doing the publishing in 2002 at Trial Guides, or what became known as Trial Guides later, e-commerce was really in its infancy. And for comparison, Google was only started about 3.5 years before that, and Google didn't go public until 2 years after we had started publishing. So we've been testing and using a variety of different digital technologies at Trial Guides now for over 20 years. I want to talk about Trial Guides' entry into the digital marketing space by talking about our history of innovation and how it applies to this new division of the company. When we started as a publisher, we fundamentally changed the way things were done. For those of you who haven't been in practice this long, what used to happen is you would get a book like this, you'd buy it from West or Lexus, and it was, $350, $550 for the base model. And then every year you would get this update. Oftentimes you didn't even ask for it, but it would arrive at your office, and it was, $85, $150, sometimes much more. And what we did is we did away with that, and we ended up publishing these books that didn't have to be renewed every year. They had practical advice from the leading lawyers, and we would get the best skills from the best, practicing lawyers. We made sure that our manufacturing was the best, and then we delivered at about 1/3 of the price of our multinational competitors. I always felt that our marketing was good, but I never really understood how good it was until we started into discussions about Trial Guides buying the David Ball books from NIDA. By that time, NIDA was already being distributed by Lexus, which is, as many of you know, is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. But what we found out when we were buying that is that we were actually selling 80% of all copies of David Ball on Damages, as compared to NIDA and Lexus combined. And how did we do that? It was effective and cost-efficient digital marketing. So through the years, I kept pushing Trial Guides with a variety of different, testing of innovative methods with digital marketing and all kinds of things. I mean, we've tried probably 60 different methods of traditional and digital marketing over the years. And keep in mind that at the same time, I'm running Trial Guides, and I'm also practicing as a full-time lawyer. And I thought, there's got to be people much better at this. And so what I did was I would reach out, I'd hire a in-house person, or I would hire an outside agency. We hired 2 very well-respected agencies that are some of the largest agencies in the country. And to be blunt, the outcomes were not very impressive. At the same time, in my law firm, I would hire companies or agencies to do work on my law firm website, and those experiences were actually worse. I, like some of you, got involved with the FindLaw debacle many years ago. You have them build a website for you. They do some work for you. And as soon as you quit working with them, they cut all ties to your website. And my website, as well as that of many of my friends, dropped into nowheresville, the 100th page of Google, and you could never recover from that, because they had essentially, by cutting the ties to your website, they would destroy your credibility and authority score as a website. And I had a long-standing, strong domain that I handed over to FindLaw as an agency at one point, and I've never been able to recover the viability of that domain. I'll continue my candor. I view where we've been in digital marketing for law firms as much what I call a black box, and the staff has heard me refer to that many times. Essentially, it's this box that a lot of law firms dump huge amounts of money into, or huge percentages of their overall budget for the year, and they really get very little or nothing out of it. And the concerning thing, when I see that is that oftentimes lawyers, we just don't even know what they're doing as digital marketers. And so as I thought about over the years, taking the knowledge that we had developed internally at Trial Guides and using that for law firms, I was very eager to do that. But it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago that a division of Nike moved into our building, and I was able to interact with some of these people, one of which is a guy that I think is probably the best digital marketer that I've ever met. And he has now been a consultant to Trial Guides for several years. And not only has he been a consultant, but he's helped train our internal staff. And I feel like we have developed the best outcomes that we've ever achieved as a company as a result of his direction. And it's really as a result of that we finally felt like we were comfortable taking the knowledge base that we have, as well as the knowledge base that he's provided, and rolling out a digital marketing agency to lawyers that would provide people real outcomes in their digital marketing efforts. The last thing I want to say is that digital marketing, as much as we would like to ignore it, it can't be ignored. One of the things that I have seen locally here over the years is these great trial lawyers who had developed wonderful reputations within the profession and had obtained, multiple multi-million-dollar outcomes, effectively losing the selection of great cases to lawyers who frankly are better marketers. And so you see younger, less experienced lawyers sometimes getting huge cases that they may not even be capable of handling on their own. And they are obtaining those cases over the lawyers who traditionally would have gotten those cases through traditional marketing because of their reputation. And so that's one aspect to it, is that people who are doing better marketing just overall are getting the better cases. The second thing that can't be ignored now is really potentially a larger threat, and that is large national firms that are quickly moving into every major legal market and bringing with them massive websites with hundreds or thousands of Google reviews, huge social media followings, and very sophisticated teams of digital marketers. I'm not going to need to name names here because you can probably guess, but one large national law firm I personally know has over 150 digital marketers working full-time on their internet presence to obtain cases. Their website grows by massive amounts every year, and they are quickly moving into geographical areas all over the country. You are going to feel an effect no matter what practice area you're in. We, of course, consult with some of our own authors and speakers, and even the best of the best are feeling presence of law firms that are far more sophisticated in terms of digital marketing. And so my advice to you is that if you don't do something now to move quickly with a strong online presence locally, you could get buried in the next few years. And hopefully that's what you're here to avoid. And so we want to give you some very effective advice that you could put into effect yourself. Or if you choose to have some assistance, we're here to assist you with that through the new digital marketing agency. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the agency director, Alex Miller.
Thank you, Aaron, for our background. I'm going to kick it over to Anthony for the overview of our webinar today.
Here we go. Hey everyone. So quick overview of the webinar today. We're going to cover 3 general topics. The first is why digital marketing is important for law firms. The second is what is digital marketing. This will be a broad level kind of conceptual overview of some of the digital marketing terms and practices you may have heard, like SEO and PPC. We're going to go into explaining those and hopefully give you a better understanding conceptually what those mean, and ideally help you understand how those could fit into growing your law firm. The other thing we're going to cover is what digital marketing agencies do. It really should be what digital marketing agencies ought to do. This is going to be talking about a lot of the issues and things that we've seen arise through our experience working with law firms, and how we've addressed them as an agency, and things you should look out for as well. So before getting really into why digital marketing is important for law firms, I want to talk about sort of the reason that we're probably all here. Is results, right? And so ideally this webinar is going to give you the framework and a better understanding of how to navigate digital marketing to get results like this over time. And we'll touch on this slide specifically later on in the webinar, but I just want to frame that as like this is the framework that you will need to see results like this for your law firm. So going into why digital marketing is important for law firms, I think it's first important to take a look back at what traditional marketing tactics law firms have used. And even going a step further than that is the definition of marketing in the first place, right? The definition of marketing is getting your product or your service in front of the right person at the right time. For years, these were the ways that law firms did this, right? Yellow page advertisements, TV and radio, billboards, lecturing, all these business cards, local involvement, all these things were ways to get in front of the right people at the right time. Now enter digital marketing. Digital marketing enables that at a level that we have not seen through any sort of marketing technique before. Next slide, please, Alex. There we go. So with that, right, digital marketing's come in, and why is that important? I think the most prominent thing is more and more clients, more and more people in general are moving online every year. Right. I'm sure you all have seen this. I'm sure you all are using the internet a little bit more these days. That's a trend that has been going on for years and is not industry specific, and the legal industry is not immune to that either. The other thing that digital marketing does is it enables your law firm to be found at the right place at the right time, and again in a way that we have not seen through other marketing tactics before. And so, with this shift digital marketing, with the new effectiveness, the new amount of people moving online, how is it reflected in the legal space? The core of it comes down to websites, right? It's reflected in a shift to most law firms having websites, law firms needing to have websites, or any business needing to have a website to unlock the abilities of digital marketing. Again, I'll say that again. You must have a website to unlock digital marketing. It's to be able to do it effectively. It's sort of a table stake, right? So going into some data to sort of back up sort of what we're talking about here, I want to first talk about the shift to online, right? So this first little piece of data here, one is the U.S. internet usage in 2022. About 92% of everyone in the U.S. at some point during the year is using the internet, right? That is a massive and staggering amount of people to have access to an audience to. The second and more pertinent, I think, for this webinar is the search volume. This graph here that shows the search volume for lawyer near me. Now, for those of you who don't know what search volume is, essentially when you go into Google and you type in, for this example, lawyer near me into the Google search bar and you hit enter, that's one search, right? So this is showing the total search volume for that specific string of keywords or your search query, lawyer near me, over the years. And you can see a very up and to the right trend, particularly right around when the pandemic hit. But what this really means for the sake of the legal space is not only are more people moving online, but more recently, a lot of people are moving online to seek legal services. And now to paint a brief picture of sort of what that looks like in the legal space currently, and these are just some numbers from ABA in 2022, 94% of all law firms have a website now. That's up from 86% in 2019. So people are clearly recognizing and continuing to recognize the importance of having a website and are taking the initiative to go and get one. More, this is just speaks to, I think, the resources that larger firms have had is 39% of solo respondents and 12% of or solo practitioners and 12% of law firms under 10 people still don't have a website as of 2022. And I think that really just speaks to, even 5-10 years ago, this was more on the cutting edge side of having website and digitally marketing, and these firms with more resources were able to invest in that. Now it's table stakes, right? Now it's you have to have a law firm or you have to have a website in order to really compete in the space anymore. So just kind of showing where that shift has gone. And then lastly, I want to speak to the competitive nature of the legal marketing industry in the first place. So this graph to the right shows average cost per click by industry. Now, cost per click is a pay per click or PPC specific metric, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But what you need to know is this is the average cost that it costs a website to generate one click to their website for the keywords that they want to show up for. And so you can see here, the attorneys and legal services is far and beyond the most expensive and competitive place to be bidding for, to be trying to pay to get clicks to your website. Another important thing to note about this metric is this is an average of all searches related to attorneys and legal services, right? So there are some services like, trucking lawyers or mass tort cases that these clicks could be upwards of, $50 to $100 per click. In other cases, like maybe bicycle accident cases or dog bite or something a bit lower, those could be lower than $9.21. So it kind of depends a lot of, what sort of practice area you're in, as well as where you're geographically located to determine what this looks like. And overall, just to know, this is an extremely competitive environment. These numbers to the left here, I won't get into too much of what those mean, but really you can see the $9.21 cost per click. These are numbers that are very indicative of a healthy but competitive online ecosystem. Next slide, please. So we talked about earlier, one of the ways that the biggest thing we've seen in terms of how it's impacted the legal space is a shift to people having websites. So how can your law firm leverage a website, right? There are two primary functions that we see here for this. One is lead generation, which I'll get into in a sec. That is really generating new and relevant case intakes for cases for your firm. And the other is validation, which is more of validating, when someone goes and gets your business card, they need to go and validate your business now. And we'll get into both these, more examples of both these right here. The first is in lead generation. I think the best way to explain how lead generation works for websites is to show where the lead generation takes place. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of a Google search engine results page. Search engine results is commonly referred to in the industry as SERP, S-E-R-P. So this is a Google SERP page, right? And you can see here you have the Google search query, injury lawyer near me up top. That's going in the search bar. Someone hit enter, and these are the results that come onto that search engine results page, right? So looking at this top part here, Google PPC ad. So this is an ad placement this is a placement on search engine results page that you will get for paying for an ad, for paying Google to say, hey, I want to be associated with the keyword injury lawyer near me. Show my website, I want to pay for it. So this is, and when you see that the emboldened sponsored, right, that's a good indication. It's an advertisement. Typically, the first 1 or 2 positions on a Google search engine results page will be an advertisement. And then when you move down, just below that is the organic listing. This is a result of SEO work being done to your site. This is essentially, and we'll get into both of these concepts a little bit later, but this is essentially asking Google or making Google like want to list your website for injury lawyer near me because it deems it to be a very good resource for its end user for that search query. And we'll again get into a bit more what this means later. I would just note that that top section is PPC or a Google ad, bottom is organic. Those are two great ways to generate leads. Going over to the right here, and this is just to speak to, I think, the robust offerings that Google has to generate leads for your website. This is what we call a local pack, and this is essentially you rank and you get put in this local pack through a combination of PPC and SEO work, right? It can be one or the other, but really just is to display how powerful Google is as a tool to use for your law firm, and how simple it is to navigate for the end user. So that's a little bit of how lead generation works with digital marketing. And again, we're going to get into more of these concepts as to what digital marketing is a bit later. I'm going to kick it over to Aaron really quickly. He's a great example to speak to with validation for a website.
Right. So what we've seen in some of the literature on digital marketing for law firms is that if you typically got your referrals from say other lawyers, from doctors' offices, from personal friends and family, or things like that, um, when the potential client goes before they just call you, almost all of them are now going to the internet to check your web page, find out about your background, about who you are, what you're like as a person, what your accomplishments are, and what your case outcomes are. And so they're looking at those kinds of things, and this is really just using your website as secondary validation before they give you a call and hire you. And so sometimes they're looking for relevant content. Sometimes they're looking for testimonials or reviews. But essentially, what we know is happening is people are not necessarily calling when they are referred to you. They are going to the website first to seek validation before they move forward with the call. And Anthony, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yep. And then we're Alex, is actually for why we're starting now.
Thank you, Aaron. That's a great example for why validation is important in your website. And, this why start now is going to be a umbrella onto what Aaron kind of talked about in the intro here. The importance of why you need to have already started this last year or before COVID goes back to Aaron's point of multi-state law firms. These large law firms have already been investing in this for a number of years, and that means they're investing their time and their money. And yes, we know we cannot compete with them in a spending war. We're not going to beat them that way. There is still a way that you can exist in that space, get clients for the cases you want, despite their 150 strong marketing in-house and sometimes upwards of $500,000 in ad spend a month. There's still a way that you can compete there. And that's being intent in what your marketing strategy is and starting that now. We've hit on it a few times, and that is the fact that results for SEO or PPC, search engine marketing as a whole, they take time. These law firms, the larger ones, even with their budgets, they did not achieve this overnight. Their large keyword totals and traffic totals did not happen, in one calendar year. They've been at this for a while, diligently making sure that whatever they use and whatever they are investing in works, which is a big thing that agencies don't often do, is double down on what really is working out for you. The other thing that kind of leads us into is the fact that each and every one of you is unique. Whether you are a large volume of intake lawyer or a very highly selective individual, you need to be able to define that with your agency to determine what services are best going to facilitate growth for you and help you compete with these larger law firms. They are more often than not the high intake. They want to get any and every case. So sometimes their marketing strategy is pretty wide funnel. The easiest way and most obvious way to compete against that is a very strict, narrow funnel, something that any, agency worth their salt should be able to do for you and drive, large growth to a highly targeted list of keywords. And that's going to kind of roll us into what digital marketing is at a holistic level, kind of give you an idea of what search engine marketing is, what other ways you can do some brand validation, and overall just how you can compete in this space. Anthony's going to take that over for SEO.
Yep. And again, this here is meant to hopefully give you a more confident understanding of some of these digital marketing concepts and digital marketing as a whole, right? So before we get into these specifics, I want to define again what digital marketing is. Digital marketing enables your business to be found at the right place and at the right time for a client seeking your service. Now we're going to cover 4 of these topics today. There are other more niche ways to get into, but we're going to cover SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, pay-per-click, email marketing, and social media marketing. And I think it's also important to view this. I want to explain how we view sort of these different buckets of marketing, right? So you'll see here in red, search engine marketing. Search engine marketing is referring to any sort of tactic you can do to get your business to rank on Google. That search engine result page I showed earlier, search engine marketing gets you to rank highly on that. So SEO, which is again goes to the organic listing we talked about earlier, that one on the bottom, and then PPC, pay-per-click, again gets that top listing right there that we talked about before. And then on the other side of this is email and social media. Now, I'm not saying that email and social media can't generate leads for your firm. That's not to be said, but primarily in the legal space, we see them being used more as a tool of validation and brand building than lead generation. And we're going to get into a lot more of what that means in these explanations. And I'm going to go ahead and attempt to explain SEO. It can sound a little complex. So I think I have a good way of simplifying this here. To start, it's SEO is a practice of working with search engines like Google to have them show your website for search queries relevant to your business without paying for the clicks. You're not paying for a click here. I think to understand more of how this works, we have to understand how Google functions. And I'm going to use a pretty simplified example of that to explain it. So I want to take the Yellow Pages, finding a business in the Yellow Pages, 20 years ago. And joke here, I had to explain the difference between Yellow Pages and White Pages. That may show my greenness a little bit, but yeah. So anyway, so think about back in the day when you need to find a law firm, right? You would go to L, find law firm. You probably have to find one that you thought was pertinent to what you needed. You probably make a few phone calls to screen and see what the best law firm for your need was. Google has taken that process and automated it, right? So now Google's saying, hey, all you have to do is type law firm or whatever it is in the search bar. I want to show you the best possible results, right? I'm going to show you the results I think are going to help you the best. Which gets me to the point of, Google wants to show the best results possible for its users, right? And it does that by trying to rank websites. And it actually comes out with what we call core algorithm updates every year to try to improve how it shows results to users. It's about 2 algorithm updates per year. This year it's had 4 already. Part of the job of an SEO agency is to keep up with those updates and make sure your website is staying to best practice with the updates that Google rolls out to try to provide the best user experience possible. To give a bit more insight into how Google understands websites, I want to use a very simple example. Let's say you have a website and you have personal injury attorney, Austin, Texas, somewhere on your website, right? So Google has to go through and crawl every single website that is on its platform. We call it the index. Crawls every website on the index. Goes and combs through all the text on every individual page. Says, oh, this website is about X. This website is about Y, right? So if it were to crawl through and see, personal injury attorney, Austin, Texas, and then someone searches, personal injury attorney, Austin, Texas in their search bar and clicks enter, Google may think, oh, this website has that exact keyword on there. I want to pull it up and show it for this search result, right? So that's a very broad level how Google views and how it kind of to best results for the end user. That's why you hear a lot of SEO agencies talking about content, right? It's not just about what's on the website. It's about writing for it so that it shows your content is recognized by Google for certain keywords that are relevant to your business. It's also about making sure that content is actually helpful for the end user and engaging. So it can't just be like, kind of just words. It has to actually be useful and beneficial for the end user. So content is one way that Google sort of gauges how it ranks. There's a whole other realm called, there's technical SEO. I'm sure you've heard that term before. I'm going to go into it briefly, but not too much here. So technical SEO is essentially working your website to make it easier for Google to understand and crawl, right? So one thing is Google seeing what's on your website. The other thing is how Google sees your website. How does it comb through your website and pick up all these different little tidbits, right? And so the easier we can make it for Google to understand and crawl the website, the more Google likes working with their website because it's easier for it to understand. Some examples of this are site speed. So the faster you can make your site load, the easier it is for Google to crawl. Pretty straightforward. If Google likes that, it's a more smooth experience for it. It also shows that you're keeping up with your website, which means that you're actively on it, which is a good indicator for Google. Another example is something called schema markup. Some of you may have heard this before in agency calls or whatever it may be. Schema markup is essentially this little bit of code that we as a user can't see. Like when I enter to someone's web page, I can't see it, but Google's crawler, Google as it combs through, can see what's in that little snippet of code. And that little snippet of code just basically is telling Google, hey, this web page is scheduled for your consultation with the lawyer, or this web page is about personal injury attorneys. And it helps Google better understand what you want that web page to be about. And moreover, it shows that you are intentionally trying to help Google understand. And again, it likes that more. So that's a little bit of technical SEO. I'm going to quickly also go into backlinks. I'm sure you've heard the term backlinks a lot. Backlinks is essentially, Google has all these different ways to rank, whether it's content or crawling the site more smoothly. Trust is another big thing for Google. And backlinks are one of the most direct ways to generate trust for Google. I mean, the other way to do it is to just have really good content over time and Google trusts it more, right? But it also looks for other websites that are referring to your site. So let's just say, for example, Amazon.com, which is a very popular popular website, obviously, has a link to a law firm website on it, right? Google is saying, oh, this very popular and authoritative website is linking to a website that maybe isn't as authoritative. And so it must be more website that is being linked to that's less authoritative must be more authoritative than we think because it's being pointed to by an authoritative website. So that's kind of how that works. On the flip side, you have like spammy or bad websites and that are linking to your site, right? So like definitely less authoritative, definitely viewed as a negative, bad website by Google. If they're linking to your website, Google may think website be sketchier than I think, right? And so it may dock you down a little bit in terms of how it views and trusts you. So something that we do commonly is we look for we call them toxic backlinks, those bad backlinks, those bad website links. We look to tell Google, hey, please do not associate our website or the website we're working on with these websites that are bad. And that helps Google, one, trust the website more because it sees people are actively trying to make sure we're associated with good websites, as well as just helps build the overall authority. So I know that was probably a little bit long-winded in the backlinks, but I think it's important to understand a few of these concepts because they're spoken a lot about on agency calls and just in general. So with that, Google or SEO results take time, right? It takes a lot of time for Google to crawl and to trust your website and to understand what it's about. But that said, the more work you put into SEO, the more that compounds, the more authority you gain, the more or less you own your keywords with Google, right? Own is kind of a strong word, but I think it's the best representation here. As Google associates your website with specific keywords, it will rank that website no matter what for certain searches for those keywords. The more work that you do, the more you keep up with your SEO work, the more it'll trust and the more you sort of own those keywords. It'll take another competitor coming into your environment and having, frankly, more content and more authority and more trust with Google for them to surpass you. So you more or less are owning those keywords when you practice SEO properly. Again, that takes time and maintenance. It's not just like one thing you do SEO for a month or a year and you kind of cut it. It takes constant iteration, constant updating. I'm constantly playing nicely with Google. All that said, SEO is something we recommend across the board for all of our clients. It's one of the best ways to get value in your website and your business, but it takes time. There's high value to long term, not as much value in the short term. Results for SEO do take time, but it is a worthwhile investment. So with that, I hope that helped a little bit. Again, any questions you have on this, please put them in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer after. But I'm going to pass over to Alex for the explanation of those other three concepts.
Thank you, Anthony. And we're going to start going into different services that will become less and less relevant for more of you. SEO, every one of you needs to be focusing on that when it comes to the content that goes on your website. Pay-per-click, which is what we're going to focus on now. That is absolutely something that a lot of you can use. It is fuel to the it is gasoline to the fire. That is your SEO. It is a great way to boost your performance very quickly. It's a good way to start getting performance right now, the second you start turning on that ad spend. Now, it doesn't mean it's for everyone. It can get out of hand really quickly. Budgets, not everyone has that budget as well. So let's go into a little bit of an overview of what that platform looks like and the different ways that you can use it, even if you have no budget. Pay-per-click can exist on a number of different platforms. Google themselves has multiple different ways, like Anthony showed, that you can show up organically or paid, whether that be a search campaign, display campaign, YouTube, or industry favorite for lawyers is local service ads. Small tidbit about local service ads: if you're pretty picky on your intake, I would avoid doing those. It's really great for high volume, not great for low volume. The other ways that you can do it is social media. You got your Meta, your Instagram, your LinkedIn. That's all great. Those are good places for you to advertise. You could even be advertising locally on Nextdoor. You could go back to Yellow Pages. You could be advertising on yellowpages.com if you want. You don't have to throw 4 A's in the front of your business name anymore. You can just pay for that spot. We don't have to do those old school gimmicky ways of, performing up at the top of the list. Now, PP is different. It is going into what we like to do, that rent versus own. It's the renting of keywords. Now, renting of keywords means the second I stop paying for injury lawyer near me, the second Google no longer wants to associate that term with your website. That's not to say that PPC cannot help the performance of organic SEO. It absolutely can. That goes back to Google's overall point. all they care about is their end users' perceived value. So if I tell Google, I know my content is relevant for that search term, and I prove it with user metrics that are positive, then hey, that'll support my organic efforts. Otherwise, the second I turn that off, that keyword is gone. So it really hammers down that point of why relevant, strong content is so important, no matter what service you're running with, because PPC as well as SEO, all of this requires massively constant iteration. It needs to be changing your targets. It needs to be changing your filters so that way you're protecting your spend. There's a lot of ways that, you know, these things can take off really quickly and inflate your budget. A terrible horror story to share with y'all. We met with a law firm out of a large state that went to an agency for PPC help. They wanted to break into a mass tort lawsuit, and the agency said, we can absolutely help facilitate that for you. We have a list right here of people we have deemed highly engaged and likely to convert for that exact case. They told them, fantastic, how much is that? Well, they charged $125,000 for that audience list. Now, that's a lot of money, and that's absolutely ridiculous, but hey, you sign one of those people, it could possibly pay overtime. So they ran a social media pay-per-click campaign targeting specifically that list that they spent money for. Now, pay-per-click budgeting, to give you an insight, is typically a percentage of this fee you spend. So the agency does not occur the ad spend, you do. They just add on 10, 20, however many percentages to that bill for you to pay them at the end of the month. So they wasted, for that $125,000, they wasted $60,000 on a social media ad campaign and got 0 phone calls. Every phone call they received was from a bot. The law firm themselves recognized that and brought it to the agency, signaling that the agency is entirely reactive, not proactive, to the strategy that they delivered for that law firm, and they separated from them immediately. They realized this is not a good use of our money. They're not caring about what they're doing. They're not even being transparent about what's going on. This is not a good place for us to be. Now, the way that you can kind of separate yourselves from that, and this isn't going to be great for all of you, is doing a little bit more of a direct to consumer campaign like we talked about, and that's away from the search engine marketing. That's kind of going into the email marketing side of things here. Now, this won't fit for all of you, but those of you that have been kicking around this idea, start today. Start collecting data today. You need an email list. You need the consent from those people to start marketing to them. You can't just start taking all the email lists from your online contact address book and dump them into a search provider. It just doesn't work. You have to have that consent. Otherwise, you're going to get can spammed, and then your deliverability goes in the tank. You don't want to have deliverability go in the tank. Email marketing is extremely valuable if you can hit the people at the right time when they're looking for your service, very similar to being on, a SERP at the right time. There's a couple ways to do this. That can be an email campaign that is a targeted list at a specific send time. So for example, all of you today, you're going to receive an email at 2 o'clock from us asking, one, do you want to continue to talk with us? But also, thank you for your time. We've enjoyed getting to speak with you today. That's an example of one campaign. Another thing I could have done is I could have set up an automatic email, an email flow, for example, so that the second you guys registered for this email, you would have got an email right off the bat saying, hey, thank you for registering. Do you want to book with us meeting after the time? And it'll give us this great timed engagement series of emails. That's something you can set up and not forget, but you can kind of set it up and only monitor performance. That saves you a little bit of time and your effort. Email marketing, as well as all these services, has massive options to fit your unique law firm. And it just comes down to working with an expert in the field to determine what works best for you. That's going to go into our last service we're going to cover here. And it's actually one of our least favorites in our agency, and that is social media. And the only reason it is our least favorite is because we like to focus on lead generation less for lead validation. And social media really exists in the space of lead validation more than generation. Yes, you could pay per click and start getting some leads to come in. But at the end of the day, social media is a great avenue and tool for brand building. And one fantastic way to do that, and we've seen it done time and time again, is showing what a pillar you are in your community, showing who you are as a person, not a lawyer. Because at the end of the day, that client has to spend time with you, the person, for hours upon hours upon hours at a time, talking about their case, talking about their life and what they went through. If they don't like spending time with you, if they don't like who you are as a person, it's going to be a lot harder for them to be convinced to go with you as their lawyer. Yeah, that may not be most conducive for their results, but people don't always think about results at that moment. You got to make sure that you're still a friend to these individuals. Now, that kind of finishes our overview of services and what a digital marketing is. Now it's going to move in our aspect of it, and that is the what digital marketing agencies do and really what they ought not to do. This section was built completely based off of our personal experience as trial guides, Aaron's personal experience as his law firm, but also some of the horror stories that we have heard from taking meetings with you guys, trying to understand the current state of digital marketing for the legal industry. And to start that off, one thing we noticed very heavily and very common is a type of predatory contracts. And there's a few ways that this can show up. So I'll just roll right into them. The worst of those being is a locked in ad spend, which means that whoever you're working with is requiring you to add PPC to your overall SEO campaign. Like we've said a number of times, each and every one of you is unique. So you cannot just template a marketing strategy for each and every one of you. So determining that you have to spend X number of dollars each and every month that you're on that service with them, that's not a good relationship. That's not going to be conducive for your success. And in reality, could put you in hot water very quickly if your budgets run out, very, very fast because they're not intently creating campaigns around it. One thing we saw very often is a combo of locked in ad spend and this next one here, and that is distinct contract lengths. One thing that we like to do at ours is an ongoing monthly service. You can cancel at any time, of course, but the idea being is we are trying to set up a relationship with you to facilitate growth over time. Our success is your success. It's not going to be us saying, I want a 1 month, 6 month, or up to 2 year contract right out the gate. You're locked into that. And oh, by the way, you're locked into a $2,000 to $3,000 ad spend as well. That's something that we felt pain from and something we wanted to address and move away from. So those are two very terrifying examples of some predatory contracts that people can find themselves in. And I hate when I, tell people in our intake meetings, this is the history of where we came from. And you guys come back to me saying, wow, that sounds exactly like what happened with my last law firm. I like hearing that because it's relevant, but I don't like hearing that you guys don't know what's going on. I don't like hearing you wasted your money. That hurts, and that happens a lot. That moves over here into that services a la carte, going back to your uniqueness. A lot of these agencies don't want to treat you as such. So similar to us, they will deliver packages to you saying, here's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. What level of growth do you want to facilitate in your law firm? And the agencies typically stop there. They don't offer any kind of customization to fit and understand what you need as your individual law firm. And that's something that we kind of are proud of, is that most of and all of our packages are completely custom based. The reason we present 3 to you is because through our experience, we've determined that those are very good benchmarks of where you can envision yourself as, well, does this work for you? If not, cool, let's figure out what works. But hey, now you have a starting point. That way, it's not just us asking you to do a whole bunch of work. We're helping you along the way. That leads into our final one here. And this is more of a just be aware and put a new meeting on your books if this is you. These are the individuals who have bundled a search engine optimization with their content management services, or CMS. And a CMS is your website or domain host. A lot of the times, those individuals will offer an SEO upsell because it's very easy. They're already living in your space. And you know what? Why not? It's only one invoice you have to pay now, not 2. That's not to say that these are inherently bad deals for you, but the priority of a CMS service is to display your content on a SERP. It is not to determine how to rank you better on that SERP. So that SEO add-on is just that. It is a profit add-on to them and a secondary concern. So what you should definitely be doing is making sure you have regular updates with some sort of contact with your CMS asking, what have you delivered for me lately? What's this marketing strategy going forward? And how am I doing locally and competitively? They should be able to deliver to you something I'm going to show here, which is a bit of a research and analysis for every organic piece of content they create for you, every piece of content they optimize for you, or paid search campaign that they start running. And while they may not communicate this to you at the top every single time, they should have this available upon request like that, because this should be their due diligence for each and every marketing campaign. For our monthly action plans that we plan out 4 months in advance, you'll get to see a bit of all of this, not only right off the top, but then revisited as we deliver that content for you, for example. And what that can look like, to go quickly over this: keyword research. We all probably heard a little bit about that and understood it. Overview topic. It's back to Anthony's thing of injury lawyer near me. Well, that's very generic and broad. So if you wanted to niche down into car accidents, we have to start finding what exists in that keyword landscape that's the best target for you locally and statewide. So that way you can start determining, where can I start to compete against these large law firms? Now, that's not to say that once that keyword research is done that first time, that it doesn't need to end up being changed. We've said it a number of times that every single thing that is done needs iteration and A/B testing. That's search engine marketing, and that's your social media and email marketing. All your agency should be doing some sort of testing on content for everything they deliver for you, because nothing is set in stone. Google's not set in stone. You'll see single-digit fluctuations of keywords every single calendar day, let alone the week. So the way that you start to protect yourself against that is adding on a little bit of more data here. And that's going deep into some audience research. Not only understanding the demographics of who's engaging with your content, but what their interests and their hobbies are, and trying to truly stretch as much of that first-person data as you can get, because we all know at the end of the day, that's the most valuable. The other thing that goes into is they need to be testing your local area. They need to be geo-fencing every ad campaign they run for you, and they need to also be geo-targeting every piece of organic content that come for you. If that's a little out there, it's geo-targeting, meaning they're mentioning the local city that you're in, the state that you're in. Same thing for the ad campaign. They are serving only your paid search campaign to your local state. It doesn't really help you gathering leads from Texas if you're over here in Portland, Oregon. The final thing that not every agency may cover, but we like to cover because it's a personal favorite of ours, that is a competitor analysis. Now, this is something we like to do to not only determine where you are as a law firm, but also determine how your local competitors are growing, what they're growing in, and maybe where your new targets should be. And I'd like to take this time to thank all those who participated in our survey and gave us some sample data that we're going to highlight here. If you are unable to, fully read your data and get a lot out of it, please email me after the fact. We can set up a time and go over it, and I'll send it over to you. That would like me to lead first into Trey. Trey, you delivered your website as well as some local competitors here for us, and it's looking pretty good. That means up here, you in blue, 51 different keywords that users can enter into Google, Bing, whatever search result, DuckDuckGo for all they care. They have 51 keywords that they can search that you will feasibly show up. Now, that's not to say that you'll show up on page 1, but that means there's 51 keywords in your overall landscape. It's low, but it's not something we haven't seen before. Luckily, you're doing pretty good as opposed to your local competitors, and that's a great thing to see. I want to move on here to our next one, because again, Adelaide at Kramer Law Offices. Another great one here. You're looking at 210 keywords, and the local competitors you provided for me, the green, orange, and the purple, you're all beating up on, and it's looking great. Your size is doing fantastic. You have 210 keywords users can use to find your website and services. But the one thing I noticed you missed is Haymond Law here, who is the #1 organic search result in your city for personal injury attorneys. And they are absolutely crushing not only you, but our previous example as well. This is more like what we've seen, those that start to really get great lead generation from their organic efforts, is around that 2,000 keyword mark, that 1,500 keyword mark. So that's kind of giving you an idea of what you should be shooting for, and even giving you a target for whose success you should be closely monitoring and where that success is coming from. Because this overlap here delineates that you don't have very many keywords that you're performing for that they are performing for. And that can be a bad thing. That they're finding success in a place that you are not covering, that's something you should absolutely be talking to your in-house marketer with or an agency about. That'll move us into our third example here, Oliver at Magna Law. I like this one a lot. You provided a good spattering of local competitors. You had one that I'm assuming, hey, this might be someone that takes referrals from you a lot. This is a guy that you know is always in your backyard and is a good competitor for you, even though maybe he doesn't have the keywords that you were expecting to see. I imagine you might have expected to see a larger keyword profile for those two or for that individual, like you did for the other provided for you. I liked this one a lot. This shows that you truly understand your local competitor landscape. You'll understand who the big dog is that you need to chase down. And even so, you got half of your bubble creeping into their area. That's fantastic. I liked seeing that overlap. That gives you a great content on what you should be optimizing to start stealing some of that size out of Robinson Capital. At the end of the day, though, Aaron mentioned at the beginning of this talk, a large law firm that absolutely is growing leaps and bounds each and every year, and whose size you should be aware of because they are likely moved into your state if they haven't already. And that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room of Morgan & Morgan for the people. I kept Robinson Kaplan as our largest example so far to date with 14,000 keywords. You can see who we all have to compete against for legal services. 159,000 keywords. A little bit of tidbit fact, they grew 70,000 keywords in 1 year. A growth percentage that we were absolutely shocked by in the house. So everyone needs to be aware of who they are. Maybe you don't need a direct comparison, but they exist, they're coming, and that means you need to start your marketing strategy now and start getting some experience, expertise, and relevance in your small niche and keep Morgan & Morgan from bullying you out of that space. One way you can start doing that is obviously working with an agency before you start booking meetings and start talking to hopefully us and not another agency, but I respect your guys' right to shop around. I would like to have Anthony talk to you guys about what you should expect in those meetings in terms of transparency. What does a successful relationship with a digital marketing agency look like? What should you be able to expect going forward and initially?
Thanks, Alex. And yeah, again, just to, I got personally great job in the competitive analysis, Alex. I kind of got lost in that for a sec. To come back to where we are, right? This is what you should be expecting from your law firm, right? And competitive analysis is definitely one of those things. But the other thing, and this is with any partnership really, right, is transparency. And this is something that we have seen a lack of in this space, and we are addressing head on with our solutions. But you need to have a transparent and open relationship with the agency you're working with, and vice versa for us as an agency working with the law firm to truly be successful. So there are different ways that you can promote transparency. We've selected 4 mechanisms that we use on a monthly and daily basis to help promote transparency with the clients that we work with. I'm going to cover them quickly. So the first is deliverables, right? Deliverables is essentially just, when you pay for work, you should be getting something in return that is tangible, right? So this is pretty relevant for SEO work, for email marketing work, social media work. This is all areas of work where content is being developed for you. Ideally, you're getting a deliverable or that content in a document or something that you can read and edit and work with before it goes live onto your website or live into the ecosystem. Minimally, you should be getting a deliverable, even if it's already going live, just so you have it, something tangible to hold on to from your agency. So just having a deliverable is a very important step in being transparent as an agency, and you should be expecting to get that from the people that you work with. On that note, monthly check-ins, right? This is probably better said as just a regularly scheduled recurring meeting, right, with your agency. A true partnership requires a little bit of FaceTime every once in a while. And so making sure that your agency carves out the time for you to have that is important. We like to do monthly check-ins if possible, just because I think it's a good cadence. But really in that check-in, right, we're talking about, the work that we've done this month, anything new we've seen come up in the space, your performance, what we can expect to be doing for you in the next couple of months. And on your side is really bringing any, big changes to your business, any questions, comments, concerns, really just an open dialogue to make sure that we're fostering this partnership in a transparent way. So you should be looking for something like that within an agency that you're working with. I think adjacent to both check-ins and deliverables are action plans, right? So again, these are more relevant for SEO, for social media, for email, but these are just like forward-looking what you can expect to be getting moving forward with any of these services, right? So it's essentially it's a mechanism that allows you to hold the agency accountable for what they say they're going to do. On the flip side, it allows the agency to see, hey, I have, these 5 pages I have to build in these upcoming months. It gives us more time to do research to really make sure we're providing the best service for you. So you should have some sort of plan moving forward so that both sides know what to expect in the relationship. And then lastly on that is results, right? Or reporting, which gets to results. The whole thing that we're doing with digital marketing is trying to generate results for your law firm. And the best way to communicate that is through reporting. For us personally, we have a reporting dashboard that we have refined down to a couple of key performance indicators that we like to use to gauge performance for your website. We create a dashboard for you that you get to keep no matter what. Like even when you leave services with us, you get to keep that dashboard. And so we use this dashboard to speak to during those monthly check-in calls. It's something you have access to throughout the month whenever you want. As you get more familiar, if you do get more familiar with sort of the metrics that are on that dashboard, you can check in on it. It's just a really good, transparent way to see how you're performing and how you're doing. I'm going to go in quickly to a couple examples of what an action plan and reporting dashboard look like. This is just an example of what an action plan, a shortened action plan could look like from us, right? So you see very clearly the type of task that you're getting. You also see specifics for that task so that we know what we have to do and you know what to expect. So that's just a very brief example of an action plan. I also want to show you a brief example of a reporting dashboard. So these are screenshots. These are part of the reporting dashboard that we build for you when you come on services with us. This is something you should be getting from anyone you work with, really. But you can see here, it's really refined KPIs or key performance indicators that we look at to gauge the performance of your website. You can access this whenever you want. But again, just at the end of the day, like this is the bread and butter of what we're doing. Right? This is how you should be gauging performance of your agency and of your business as a whole online. That gets me into the last part of what you should expect from an agency, which is results, right? We all know like we're entering this relationship for results. You should work with an agency that has proven to generate results for and is confident that they can generate results for you. What we're looking at here is a chart from and one of the earlier clients that we worked with at Trial Guys Digital Marketing. These are SEO results specifically, right? So this obviously is a longer time period. But this is the end result, taking the time, taking the diligence, going through the proper steps, and properly optimizing websites for SEO, right? And these are the kind of results that you can see. They went from six visitors per month to 2,900 visitors per month in the span of a little over a year, a little under a year. So it definitely happens, right? You just have to take the first steps to really make the difference for your website. And before we get into Q&A, I see a couple questions in there. I just want to say, first of all, thank you everyone for showing up for this. I know taking an hour out of your busy days. Something that we're going to be doing, Alex alluded to earlier, is we're sending out an email at 2:00 PT here. One, thanking you again for your time, but two, offering a free consultation for you and your law firm. These consultations are not meant to be salesy at all. These are meant for you to bring us, your worries, your concerns, any questions you may have, talk through your marketing strategies with us, see where maybe we can give you some advice to help, your internal team do some work. And if we can find synergies to work together, all the better. So please schedule that. If anything on here raises a red flag for you, if you have any questions, please schedule extra time with us. The only other thing that I will mention is that moving into the end of the year, we have about 3 slots available to take on clients. That's primarily because we want to take, a high quality and diligent approach to bringing clients on. So that said, if you want to get started right away, or if you're planning monthly budget or annual budget for next year, scheduling that consultation will kind of unlock that ability to come on with us quickly. So please do, if you have any questions or any concerns or anything and you want to talk to us. Otherwise, I'm going to hop into some Q&A real quick. So let's see here. Looks like we've been answering.
Anthony, I answered a number of them, but I wanted you and Alex to deal with this one about the tracking blockers. And then there's actually another one that I answered partially that we can address as well, but I'll let you handle that one first.
Yeah, and I'll read the question out loud. Thanks, Aaron. So the question is, how are you handling the tracking blockers website users are doing more and more now? How can you help your customer know where the lead is being referred from online? Great question. So I think, first of all, the tracking blockers and the emphasis on privacy is definitely not going away, right? I also want to say that there has never been, like, through just the classic Google Analytics backend, you've never been able to see like a specific user visiting your site, right? It's always just aggregate data. So that data is not going anywhere, right? There's a way to set up the tracking so you can see, whether it's for organic SEO, for PPC through social media, you can see, a group of those visitors and how they're interacting with your site. Moreover, there are other tools and technology that we can use to tie specifically, like when someone calls your business, we're able to see the user's name, their information, where they came from online, even to the nitty gritty of which pay-per-click campaign did they click on to get to this call, right? So there are technologies around that provide a glimpse of insight into it. Again, it's not like a holistic insight. You can't really see and track everyone. But you do have some tools out there that will stay around, that will enable you to track better. I think overall, though, the question for this is just good quality marketing and good quality keyword targeting, right? I think handling that is as long as you have a confident strategy and you're going after the right niches, you're going to be able to still, you're going to be able to still see and feel the results of that work, with even with these blocks coming in. And I'll stop there, Alex. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
I have one other thing. It's like, it's a great mention to, let them know that there's a lot of data you can get from those who call your phone with a few tools. There's also something that I don't know if anyone's terribly familiar with, so I'll try to do a brief introduction to it, and that's heat map tracking. Hotjar, Clarity, a whole bunch of other services exist for that. And to Anthony's point, yes, we've never been able to tell the exact individual user who's coming to your website, but this heat map tracking, it will record their session and how they interact with your website, even though it'll anonymize who it was. But we then do get to see where they came from, how long they spent time on your site, what they scrolled through, and so many more things to see how that content is resonating with the consumer. So it's usually stuff like that that's a little bit more as the tools to get around that blocking of data. And a little bit of insight here, there's a lot of those privacy things that come out that make you think that, like, yeah, I'm searching on incognito and I'm using DuckDuckGo, so they can't tell anything about me because that's what's been advertised to me for those services. I can still see all your stuff. There's very little you can do to stop, every single piece of metadata as you navigate through the internet. It's really hard to do. So yes, it's getting harder, but thank God there's still some tools out there that help us target accurately, even though everything is constantly changing, even though, like, Google just took away lookalike audiences for paid campaigns. Doesn't mean we still can't leverage something. There's always answers, and that's an incredibly great question because it is top of mind for any marketer right now.
So there, guys, there's another question in here, and I didn't provide too much of an answer, but there was a question: isn't SEO in the process of changing over to search generative experience, AI-based type experiences? I know that we've already been doing campaigns for some law firms with Bing and the OpenAI, Chat GPT type functions, the way that Bing is working now. And then October 12th of 2023, I had written in there as being sort of the day that Google rolled out the search generative experience on that platform. But I think the question is how are you dealing with that right now, and how are you essentially using tools to still reach people?
yeah. I can start that, Alex. So, I think it's important to note, again, going back to the Google wants to provide the best possible experience to the end user, right? AI content is not there yet. It might get there one day, but you still need a human on the other end to be intentionally crafting that data or that content Google can tell when it's AI content. Google's crazy like that, right? So they're able to determine that. More importantly, is our end users, right? You can tell when it's kind of just missing a little bit. So I think in general the shift is moving slightly to AI, obviously, but I think there's a long way to go in the industry. The other thing that just kind of theoretically looking a bit down the road, right? When everyone has access to AI, let's just say AI is doing content for every website on the internet, right? All of a sudden Google's, every website is going to be about the same again, right? It's going to be a level playing field. There's going to be a need for human intervention or some sort of intervention to change that content to make it stand out to Google, to provide the best user experience possible. So, I think there's I think the key thing to be keen on is leveraging it where you can, on processes, leveraging it to learn more, and staying on top of the algorithm updates to make sure that it can be best managed to continue to provide performance. So we're definitely we're definitely aware of it and cognizant of it. But overall, I think there is still some time to go before it's a massive impact on search engine.
Yeah,
I do want to just go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna, one of the things I wanted to address actually is some of our experiences, what we've seen so far with like Chat GPT use. And just because it's sort of law firms trying to do their own SEO using Chat GPT as an easy function. And frankly, the outcome has not been good. So we've had some people trying to generate copy about the staff with Chat GPT. We've seen some people trying to do blog posts using Chat GPT, and frankly, my experience, at least, and I'm not working obviously with the agency full time, but I these guys pull me in once in a while and they're like, hey, take a look at this. It's shockingly bad and potentially problematic from an ethics perspective. And so I just would strongly suggest that people, if they are going to run things in Chat GPT, they take a really hard look to make sure that it's all correct before they post it on the website. Because the hallucinations that we've been hearing about, obviously with the the use of case law in briefs that doesn't exist, is also problematic in terms of like creating erroneous content, potentially involved with either cases, legal cases, or legal news, or even lawyer biographies for the website. And it could be very problematic, and I just really want to warn people about that before you go down that path too far.
Using the generative AI for helping your content creation is not a great idea. Google did soften their stance that initially they said no AI data or no AI content will be valued and prioritized, that we're going to start devaluing some of it. They've since softened that stance, and they've kind of gone to their end all be all. If it's positive to a user experience, then it stays. And that goes to Anthony's point of, you really need a educated individual going through what the generative AI spits out to you. And also, Trey, to try and also shift this into what's been talked about by Bing, where search engines are going to completely change. The SERP results aren't going to be the same. Now you're going to have a conversation with an AI and it's going to shop for you. To me, I view that very similar to Google rolling out featured snippets. And all that means is, yes, relevant content is still king. While that may change how we lay that content out, how we communicate that to the end user, that's fine, because at the end of the day, the way we communicate that to the end user is specifically tailored for Google's either the generative AI new search result page, for them to be able to take that data, snippet it out, and answer the user in the most clear and concise way possible. It's the same thing as trying to get featured on the people also ask section of a Google search page. Sorry about that. So I hope that kind of gives you an encompassing view of where AI is right now. Anthony, sorry, go ahead.
No, that made me think of one more piece too. Is Google makes so much money from paid ads, right? Like they make a bunch of revenue from getting people to pay to have their websites clicked on, right? So that's not going anywhere, right? No matter what, like the use of Google showing websites, whether it's through AI or not, that they're keeping that around because that's a lot of money for them, right? So there's still always going to be a need for some sort of optimization, for some sort of, especially in the legal space, because as it was being alluded to, it's a very, ethically, you have to make sure your content is good and makes sense and all that. So it's not going anywhere. It just may change how it looks a little bit and what we as marketers have to do to help you perform. But just want to throw that snippet out there too, is Google's bread and butter is ad money. So and showing websites and that kind of stuff. So that's not going anywhere.
They made $224 billion last year in ad revenue. So yeah, very good call out, Anthony. Thank you for reminding us of that.
Yeah.
Going for the rest of the Q&A, I see an anonymous one talking about backlinks, whether or not they're still as important to Google as they used to be. That's a great point. That just highlights exactly, like Aaron said in there, the fact that Google is constantly changing. I'm not sure if everyone heard it with our our difficulties, but typically there's 2 core algorithm updates a year. Anthony highlighted there's been 4 this year. Things have been drastically changing, but that's not to say that backlinks are no longer important. They are certainly less important than they were back in FindLaw's glory days when they were essentially a link farm. Pandas kind of killed that, but they do still matter. It's just one of those things where you have to be very diligent in the auditing of your overall landscape. Are the links that are coming to your website relevant? They don't all have to be valuable and powerful, but they have to be relevant, or that will start to be, it's like mold in your walls, man. Over time, it'll become a large problem. So everything SEO feeds into it. So unfortunately, no one has the right answer for what Google truly cares about. Even if we're looking at the Google leak from this year of Yandex, the Russian copy, we all crawled over that trying to understand what Google might care about, and we still don't know.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that too, is as the services that we offer, right? We don't focus much on backlinks anymore. Frankly, the benefit of reaching out, there's a lot of work that goes into just generating one really authoritative link. There are a lot of ways. We have some pretty streamlined technology that we can use to generate backlinks that are beneficial, that don't take a lot of time, but we kind of stop there. I mean, there's definitely a lot of value in disassociating yourself with bad backlinks. And there is definitely some value in backlink building, but in terms of the other things you can be doing to promote your business, there are better options out there. So just to kind of show how we've adapted to that change in the environment, it's relevant and pertinent, but not necessarily what we focus on right away.
I do want to address that toxic backlink thing just real quickly. And for those of you that don't know, that's the terminology that's used in the marketing world or the digital marketing world regarding these incoming links into your web page that are set up from another website. And as Anthony sort of suggested, if you had an Amazon or a Wikipedia or somebody that's a very high authority, 100 score authority inward link from, again, Wikipedia or Amazon or somebody really large and authoritative like that, it's very helpful for your page. But the bigger problem that we're really seeing as the agency looks at different websites is some firms have hired what I would suggest to you are historically very well reputed companies, and they've hired them to build inward links to their website. And to be honest with you, it's caused a lot of damage. We actually had somebody come in the door recently that had something like 1,500 toxic backlinks. It's essentially like destroyed their authority score as a law firm website because they had all these links that they paid to be put toward the website thinking they were going to be good. But in fact, what ended up happening was they had a bunch of really negative traffic coming in from spammy blogs that weren't really related to law that were posting into their law firm webpage. And what it actually did was more damage than good, like a lot more damage than good. So one of the things, as an example that we would be hired to do in a situation like that is remove those links, or what we call disavow the links. And then that helps Google to understand, hey, this is a website where they're trying to maintain their site and make sure that it's credible and that the links inward to it are credible. and that signals Google that you're working and trying to put, positive energy into making the website the best it can be. So that's just one of these little nuance areas, and there's loads and loads of nuance areas that we haven't addressed at all today, that the agency is dealing with on behalf of law firms. And so it's a holistic view. Again, if you come in and for instance, you don't have to sign up. And this is a good example. When I was going to have my website redone a few years ago, because I was having some issues with WordPress, as an example, which is, if you're not aware, what a lot of law firms historically have been on in terms of their websites. It's very susceptible to hacking, and I actually ended up having a hack at my site some years ago, and our agency actually is the one that ended up dealing with that, Alex in particular, and essentially resuscitating my law firm domain, thankfully. Got a new website. But when I was out bidding for the website before we had started the agency here, it was, what happened was akin to what Alex was talking about before, which was, hey, look, we'll build you a website if you agree to a minimum of $4,000 a month in PPC spend. And I was like, well, I already know that's not going to work, because I've tried PPC for my particular area of law, which is traumatic brain injury work. And so, essentially, to walk in the door, you're looking at $48,000 a year, and you don't have that at Trial Guides. And I think that's the good thing, is we're trying to be as effective and efficient as we possibly can be, where you come in. We haven't really announced it yet, but I'm going to brag a little bit here briefly. I actually was working on a case that I was brought in as trial counsel for, and seeking witnesses. We did a very brief campaign on social media, and I believe PPC in a geographical area. And by seeking witnesses to testify about this mass exposure event, I actually picked up an additional 6 clients for a total of less than $100. And that's kind of the effectiveness of what we're talking about with the agency, is how can you spend the least amount possible but get the best and return on investment. And so again, when I talked about trying to revolutionize digital marketing for lawyers the same way that we did with publishing, we're bringing that full 20-year history, as well as a lot of training from very capable, to bring it to bear for the legal market. And I think it's going to be unlike anything that's available right now. So we're doing great work. They're getting great results. And any other questions though before we go? It looks like maybe we're out of questions for today. Alex,
there's one final one that you answered, but I can add a little bit to it, and that's the the small law firm owner with the limited marketing budget. Aaron, your answer is exactly right. So they do need to be putting up as much organic content as they can themselves. And that doesn't mean you have to write things, though. A lot of you attorneys have other things that you have been doing historically. Those are assets you can use. Start highlighting yourself. Aaron speaks a lot, or spoke a lot. Start writing some pieces about where you're speaking, when you're speaking, and reach out to that organization and see if either A, they've already posted something about you, or B, they're willing to post something about you. And like we're talking about those backlinks, link it to your website. If they don't link it, fine. Either way, start becoming more visible. Put as much out there for your law firm as you can to be seen. And when you can start to develop a little bit more of a coherent strategy with an in-house marketer or an agency, that's when you can start dumping it down really hard, because you already have a pretty large existing breadth of content on your website, because you started now doing what you could do for now. So it's just use whatever assets you have now, get them live, and do it, as Aaron said, do it deliberately. Don't dump 50 pieces of content on there this month. Do it over time. Let Google know that you are active. Let Google know that you are here in that space and you want to remain. That's what they really appreciate.
Yeah. Again, and for some of you, this applies, some of you, it doesn't. But as Alex said, in the early part of my career, I lectured a lot. I wrote a couple of books. I wrote a lot of articles on different topics. And if I had it to do over again, I would be taking that content and posting it on my blog regularly. didn't do that. I'm starting to do a little bit of it now, things that I've written over the last 20 some years as a lawyer. But getting more content out there is super important. And then the other part of it too, that I did address in sort of my answer there, was go back and look at what is presently on the website. Can you improve it? Like, can you change, refresh, update, especially like if you put statistics in there about a particular thing, like you do med mal, you do car accident cases, something like that. Can you go back in there and like look at the stats and refresh them and things like that? Are there another big one? Again, if you're doing this all on your own, go in and look and make sure that your links all over the web page, all over your website, excuse me, are still active. Because if you have broken links in the web page, now we have the technology to be able to do that. Like, we can go in and we can, scan your web page and go, oh, actually, these 15 links are broken. You got to go in there and like either take the link out or, and we do, the agency does a lot of that work. But if you know that you still want the link there, you got to find out, is it broken? Is there a new, a new thing? Trial Guides actually had that issue up until a few years ago when we went through, we did kind of a deep cleaning. But it was interesting, and I didn't know this had happened actually until we realized, there were links. There were the early days of Trial Guides. We did a bunch of books on insurance, including the bad faith stuff against Allstate that was happening at the time. And there were all these articles out there online regarding Allstate and McKinsey. And as we went back, we realized that either Allstate or McKinsey, or maybe both of them, had done a reputational damage control, and they had figured out how to get news or agencies that had posted stories about them to take the stories off their webpage. And so we had these outward links that at one time applied to, insurance bad faith, and essentially they now no longer existed anymore. And so we had to sort of work around that issue. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. I mean, something that you had linked to, again, there was a CNN story about minor impact cases that we had linked to at one point. You got to go back and look at all that stuff and make sure that it's still there. And if it's not, you got to change the links. And, if doing it manually, it's going to take you some time, but you really don't want broken links out there. It's can really damage your reputation score. Because as Google comes in and it crawls your site, if it hits, a broken link, it's going to reflect badly on your site as being stale and not up to date. So anyway.
Yep, that goes right back to what we mentioned today, is constant iteration. Google will start to view your content as stale if it's left unupdated for, let's say, around 1 quarter. That's a pretty good safe assumption. Right.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Hopefully it's been useful and you got some, free insights in terms of what you can do on your own website. If you want help from the team, they're certainly here to help you. And these two are generally going to be your contact points for other people. We also have a director of content creation who's not on the webinar today, and she oversees the team of writers for copy. And I guess that's the other thing we didn't really mention is, because we're a legal first organization, we came in from the legal side, not from the marketing side. The copy that's written for law firms is substantially different. And so we have certain people writing for certain specialties, trucking, med mal, motor vehicle cases and that type of thing. And we're looking at, the copy that we have from our products and videos, books, videos, and audiobooks, in regard to how we address those issues, so that we use that as a starting point for the copy that's written for firms that are trying to specialize in those particular areas. Anyway, with that, I'll bid you a good day.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. I'm going to officially end the webinar and let everybody go. Thank you to all of our attendees.